At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to patrons of the podcast, as well as Facebook subscribers. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it more than you know. This is going to be an excellent episode, but before we get to this episode here, I just want to mention I am fresh back from the Indiana 911 Professionals Conference. I had to think about that one for a moment because originally it was just the Indiana APCO NINA conference. It was a joint one, and now it's still joint, but they changed the name. The reason I bring it up as well is because it was an excellent experience. It was also bittersweet because of the fact that I had the chance to do Imagine Listening there. And I'm so glad that everything worked out the way it did, because Imagine Listening, that session started at that conference and at that specific venue in Indianapolis back in 2017. That's how long I've been doing Imagine Listening. And when I got there a few days ago, I found out that was going to be the last time that the conference was going to be at that venue. And it hit me when I was in front of the audience doing the Imagine Listening session that was going to be it. We were finishing it off there in the venue where it started. And it's always going to have a lot of memories. I stood there in that room for a little bit and was just looking around and reflecting on just everything. Going in there and testing back in 2017, the way it was very powerful and an awesome moment. And thank you, all of you who were there and shared your stories. That episode will be coming out in a few weeks. And also thank you to the conference for having me back to be able to have that opportunity to do Imagine Listening there, where it started, and just going on from there. So a lot of things coming up. And I can't wait to reveal all of that, but we're going to jump in here with my guest. And my guest today is Josephine Rios, and she's a communications operator number 3 out of an agency in South Florida, and is also the founder of Latinas of 911. Hello.
Hi, Ricardo.
Oh man, you say that just rolls right off the tongue. I so I'm guessing you're fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
Okay, so mine, I always say, is a little bit more broken than fixed. The Spanish that I learned, like my parents are fluent, but I learned, my siblings and I learned mostly from our abuela, our grandma that was there, because she didn't speak English. So if we wanted anything, we had to learn. So it was from her learning and also, cumbias, like just music and just everyday life with them. So every time I try to do the double R with my name, my tongue is so stupid. Like I can roll my R's. I can roll my R's fine, but when I'm saying my name, man, I don't know. But when you said it just now, I was like, yeah, that was perfect. So, I'm very happy to have you here. This is gonna
Thank
be
you for
good.
having me.
Yes,
I'm
this is gonna be
actually,
awesome.
since you said that, I'm actually first generation Floridian. My
Oh.
parents are from Nicaragua and they
Mhm.
migrated here during the war with, was it La Sandinista? So they came here and they only spoke Spanish. So when we learned English, we actually had to learn English in school and take ESOL.
Ah, okay.
So that is
Excellent.
why I'm bilingual. But none of my nieces and nephews know any Spanish because my family, my brothers or my sisters, they have biracial couple. They're a biracial couple, so they only speak English.
Mhm.
So it's hard when you don't have two Spanish speaking parents.
Very true. Yes. So I'm the same way with my family, my kids, biracial and everything. And they're learning though. They're learning a lot of it, and I will be talking with them and stuff, and the look on their face when they actually understand it, or even more funny, when we're walking through, a store or something, and I'm listening to a conversation, and I'm kinda chuckling to myself because I know what's going on, like someone is getting their ass handed to them in Spanish, and I'll look down at my kids, they're like, "Oh, I know what they're saying." I'm like, "You shouldn't that part you probably shouldn't have heard, but I'm glad you understand it, so, like, kudos."
No, one of my nephews, when I was talking to my brother, he's like, "Why? I don't like when you guys talk Spanish." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because I don't know if you're talking about me." I'm like, "That's a little paranoid."
Oh, right?
Like,
R
we're
that
having an adult conversation.
it seems to be the thing though, right? And I don't know why that is. It's like that everywhere, right? If some people hear, a different language, but a lot of times, Spanish, someone will say, and I say this from experience, I wonder if they're saying something about me. I saw them look at me and like, dude, no. I know what they're saying. They're talking about their own shit. Like, why are you going there right away?
Yes, that is usually the norm. I don't know if you're talking bad about me or my mother. I'm like, your mother? I don't even know your mother.
Right. Yeah, because that's always the worst thing, right? It's, always the mom cut downs, but sometimes
Yes.
those are the funniest ones. Oh, man. Well, again, it is awesome to have you here. I'm excited, and I wanna jump into your story and everything. So, how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
My brother, he started in law enforcement.
Mhm.
I was already doing roadside service. Before that, I dispatched for them for a little month, and I did went into QA for them, and then I went to customer service, where I became a claims adjuster, and I was doing tire and wheel claims for warranty companies. And I hated my job at the time. I was always complaining. I was bored, and then my brother was like, "Hey, why don't you try dispatching? And then benefits, retirement." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess medical." Like, I'm like, "Okay, I'm sure I'll try it out." And I tried forever with Miami-Dade, and it was a no all the time. It's like I was devastated. My brother's like, "Really? Just try another agency. Try somewhere else." And I was like, "But I only know Miami. Like I was born and raised here. It's like my little place, my little home." And he was like, "Just try it somewhere else, bro." And the first time I tried somewhere else, I got hired right away.
Oh, look at that. Did you get
Yes.
did you get to do, like, a sit-along or anything like that? Or
No, I still had to do the whole hiring process, but it
Mhm.
wasn't as like, for example, they did have like a mini psych. So for day, they put you through the 2,000 something questions that like police officers have to take. I
Oh,
remember
shit.
going through that, and I told my brother, "Why the f do I have to freaking do a psych test like a cop?" I'm like, I might as well have just applied for a cop in that sense. Like,
Right, yeah.
I'm just answering phone calls. Like, I don't understand. And he was like, "Bro, they just want to know you're not crazy." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, they asked one of the questions that sticks out to me is, do you enjoy having sex? I'm like, this is like a weird question to be asking for a job interview. Why do they need to know that? Because they ask, do you enjoy having sex with underage people? Have you ever had sex with underage people? So he was like, they just want to see the consistencies in your answer. I'm like, okay, but then if I say no, I don't have sex with underage kids, but then I enjoy sex, what does that say?
Right.
Like, I'm like, is that contradicting myself? I don't understand. So it started putting me like nervous, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I probably failed it. I'm like, I have those questions because then they break you from those questions, and like here's a mini like what did he call it? It was like a high school test. You have to do
Mhm.
math. I'm like, I need math to be a dispatcher. I don't understand. What is the problem here?
You had to
And
do
he,
math?
yes, it would ask questions like, the car is traveling 30 miles per hour, and the car got to the location at X amount of time. So if it got to that location at X amount of time, how many miles per hour was it actually driving?
What?
Yes. So I was like, what? Why do I need to answer this? So yeah, it was questions like that. I was like, and then it would ask you, are you do you get upset often? Likely, unlikely, very likely. So it was kind of those kind of responses, and I'm like, who doesn't get freaking pissed, right? Everybody has.
Right.
So that does that mean I'm a very angry person all the time? I don't understand. I was just so bored by the end. I was like, look, I want to get the fuck out of here. I was there for 4 hours. So
Holy
my brother was,
sh
yes, my brother was like, well, that's probably why you failed. And I'm like, anybody would fail this. This was boring. And then they give you like a mini quiz in between like 15 minutes and then get back to that test. So I guess it's to like put your mind somewhere else and then bring you back to see if you remember what you wrote or answered before,
Whoa.
kind of thing to mess you up. And then you have to speak with a psychologist or something afterwards in your interview. So I was like, yeah, it's a lot.
Good lord. Yeah, no, so I started out in Florida too. My whole dispatch career, it started out in Florida. It was Central Florida. It was a small police department though. The city is called Frostproof. And it's like southeast, southwest, almost respectively from Tampa and Orlando. Like if you know Lakeland, Winter Haven, and then there's like Lake Wells and then Frostproof. That's where I started. But it was nothing like what you went through when all I had was I went in for my interview, and that was my test basically because the chief and the lieutenant were just firing questions at me, and they were basically testing me to see if I could think on my feet and answer rapid fire style. And then I didn't hear from them for like 2 months. Chief comes by finally and asks me if I want the job, and I started that night. That same night, I started a midnight shift, and but that testing sounds wow.
Yeah, that was that was a psych test. So how it was is you applied, you had to do the critical testing first.
Uh-huh.
See if you could type, handle hearing stuff in your ear at the same time, dispatch who you need to dispatch, then type whatever you're hearing in the headset. Okay, did that, then you pass that, or you send you another a month later a letter. Hey, your next phasing test is you have to do your physical. After you do, this is once again you pass background, then you do the next thing, physical testing. Then after your physical test, hey, you have to do a polygraph. And I'm like, a polygraph? Like, why do I have to do a polygraph? And then I will say for the people that are nervous, because that's me, I fail polygraph tests plenty of times because I'm a nervous person. I like literally, you know what? They tell just sit there. They have you apply to stuff, and then they're like, just sit and don't move. And I'm like, are they serious? Like,
Like,
you
I have an itch.
control your breathing because it'll spike up the bars.
Yeah.
And they literally tell you focus on something, right? If you see that red dot in front of you, focus like on that. And then I'm just like, I feel my hands going on my knees, and I'm like, oh, can't move. So you can fail those if you're a really nervous person. So it's really hard to stay calm in those. And they tell you sleep well, rest. But obviously, if you're thinking of the what you're expecting the next day, that's like more than likely not going to happen. Eat a good
Right.
breakfast. So then after you do the poly, that goes well. Then of course the psych test is the last one, and then maybe a three panel interview. And I don't know if that was the final now or before the psych. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you literally go through hoops to get the job. So that's why I tell people, if you want this job, make sure it is something you want, because you go through a lot. It takes like a year just to hire people, right? So
Damn.
we were short for a long time because of how long the hiring process is, right? So people have to go through all these hoops to get the job. And then when you get the job, it was kind of like they didn't know what they signed up for, because we didn't do that, letting people go into the center and kind of experience the culture of the center, what they would have to be doing. And then the academy is another kind of different aspect to the job. They're just doing book stuff normally there. So when
Uh,
they come out and after the academy, they're like, that's not, I don't feel like I learned from the academy what I have to be doing here, and it's not the same thing. And I'm like, guys, because you're learning cities, districts, geography, you're learning
yeah.
all the certifications we need to do this job. You have to be state certified now to do this job. Plus, you have to do your APCO certifications, your NCA, FCIC certifications. That's really what they do in the academy. They put you through all the certifications, the EFD, the EMD. So we used to do EPD as well. But EPD, when we were so short staffed, our agency was currently a lot in the news because of our short staffing and unanswered calls. It was taking a lot of time for us to interrogate with EPD. Like a call that I could put in 2 minutes was taking me 7 minutes. You had to ask verbatim, and remember, you have to ask everything verbatim with
Yeah.
these questions, with the protocols. So we couldn't freelance. And then we had the other issue when we hired all these people that learned through EPD without freelance. Once they took it away, it was kind of like, hey, what am I doing? How do I ask these questions? I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh man.
So we've gone through a lot of ups and downs in regards to that. And now I think they've seen the issues we've had with hiring and sustaining. So they're doing now having people come to the center, sitting before they do the job to see if it's actually something they want to do because of the turnaround. Our job has still a lot of turnarounds. A lot of other states have turnaround. And those are the things kind of like you have to figure out where those issues are. But sometimes I feel like agencies say they want feedback, but in reality, they don't. They just want you to say
Yeah.
everything's great
It's
when it's
it's it's like
not.
it's almost like a survey. They just they just want to be able to read it maybe and then not do anything. Oh god, that sucks. I am glad though. I'm glad to hear though that things have changed in the sense that people are actually going in there to see and to sit and to listen to see if it is something that they want to do because for a long time with my agency as well and I can kind of compare and contrast from the way it was in the beginning and for you as well that we didn't have people coming in it was very rare that someone could actually come and sit until they changed it but before people would come in and they would do like all the written and everything and they would be all right, yeah, I've got this, good to go, but then that first phone call they take and they're like, nope, I'm gonna go outside and take a break quick, and then they never come back. But it's good to have them come in and sit along and listen and hopefully there is something that is going on because when we switched it up and we did have people coming in, there were a few times for a couple hours someone would be sitting there with us and not a damn thing would happen and they would say, I think I could do this. There's really not much going on. And I would say, no, this is not a
You
true
came on a
depiction.
you came on a good day.
Oh, right. Yes.
You
Because
need to maybe come back another day.
right, or someone say the Q word, and then everything goes to hell so that they can actually see what it's like when officers go in there and they would give us shit sometimes and say, "Man, you guys are just sitting here watching Netflix, eating or whatever." But a couple of them would come in when shit was hitting the fan and they would go to ask us a question and we're like throwing our hand in their face like, "Nope, not right now." Like things are going to hell. Your ass needs to get back out on the road and quit bothering us. Oh shit.
And they
But
always come up there and they say, "Oh, I don't know." They just see the computers, and I think they're automatically overwhelmed. Like,
oh yeah.
this is a lot. How do you guys do this? And I could see it as an outside perspective. You've never done it. That yes,
Yeah.
it's intimidating. But I always tell the new hires, I'm like, You will get it with time. Don't worry about this right now. It'll come to
Exactly.
you. Like once it's explained to you, once you do it daily, it's little by little gonna trickle in, and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
Don't feel like you have to get it all at once because it's not.
exactly. And it's good to hear as well that you are letting these folks that are newer that are coming in, because I mean, as we sometimes reflect, and we'll reflect here in a moment, it was overwhelming in the beginning, walking in and seeing everything and just thinking, am I going to be able to do this? So like for you, once you got past everything that you needed to get hired at the agency that you ended up at, what was that like for you? Now you're walking in, and what is it that you see as you're walking in? And did you feel overwhelmed?
Um, Not overwhelmed, but because for us it was more of like the military style when I started. It was like you have to be on time, not you're fired. You're late, you're fired. You're I'm like, "Oh my God." Like I would literally wake up in a panic if you didn't pass your quizzes weekly, you're fired. I'm like, "Oh my God. I don't want to get fired." Because I literally left a job that I was doing more money to do something I wanted to do for a lot less money. When I first started, it was like 27,000 annually. I was like, "What is this? Chump change? What am I gonna do with it?" Like I
Right.
had to literally work around that budget for a while. So yes, I mean it's rewarding now. Our money, we just got a raise in our department, so it's kind of okay now. But there's still other agencies that pay more. So it's kind of like kind of having to balance that budget from across. And then our cost of living in Florida is insane right now. Buying housing right now is crazy. So
Oh shit. Yeah, when I started, again, it was 2001, but living in Polk County, the cost of living wasn't as high, at least not in the area where I was at, because my start out pay per hour was like $7. Yep. It was either
imagine.
it was either 7 or 7.25 an hour.
And
Either
now
way,
McDonald's is $15.
I know.
I was like, where was that money when I needed a job?
Hell yeah, man. I would have been flipping some burgers for that.
Exactly.
But I luckily where I was living, I had a two-bedroom home on the lake, and it had a dock and a little boat. I mean, I was renting, but because I was working where I was working, the landlady, she cut it down, so it was only like $500 a month, and I thought,
Yeah,
oh shit, all right, I'll be gonna be banging. This is gonna be good. Like I'm actually doing
500.
all
That's
right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Except for when I moved back to Southwest Michigan and finished off my dispatching career there. So I met my wife in Florida. So we come back to Southwest Michigan, and I said, "So where do we were going to be living with my dad for a couple of months before we got this place that we were looking at." And I said, "Where do you think? Where should we go stay? If you could go stay anywhere here in Michigan on the side where we're at, where do you want to go?" She goes, "Well, maybe we can find a house on the lake, to rent like we're doing in Florida." I was like, "No, that is like $1 million property shit. Like, there's no way we're gonna end up there. Not on my salary and dispatch. Hell no. Like, that's not gonna happen." So, I mean,
Exactly.
we got lucky, when we were in Florida and everything. But you get through all of that, you get in there and you start working. And do you remember your first call or some of your earlier calls that were coming in?
I really don't. It's like
Mhm.
I've been here so long, you don't really remember. And that's kind of like when I was training, I would jot down daily calls with the
Mhm.
new hires because it all becomes like a blur.
Right. Yeah.
So it was mainly like routine domestics and stuff like that. I remember my first call during Christmas. First call of the day, started the shift, and I put my headset on. The lady was like, I just murdered somebody. They're in my backyard. Come get them. Click. She hangs up. She didn't give me an address. I was like, oh my God. And I had to put it for the long coordinates because that's all
Yeah.
I had at the time. Then I had to do like a cell phone trace at the time. We didn't have internet computers at all. So there was no Google. There was no. rapid that there is now.
Oh.
So it was like old school, like you would look at the phone book for somebody's phone number, or you would do a cell phone trace to try to get an address. So I did that, put the call in, and she ended up just being a mentally ill person. But that was the first call I got of the day on a Christmas day. I was like, oh my God, did somebody
Jeez.
really get murdered? And I'm like on my own already. But then that's when your training kicks in. Okay, I don't have an address. What do I have to do next? And you have to be able to think on your own at that time and steps. Of course, you have your duty officers or supervisors to help you if you get jammed up, like, hey,
Mhm.
what am I supposed to do? But
Damn. So, okay, hold on, really quick. So for the agency that you're at now, in that area, how many people are working at a time with you on a shift?
for my site, because
Mhm.
we're regional and we
Okay.
do over 30 cities for the county. So there could be 20 of us in our site. 20 to 24, depending if you have supervisors on too. So, but we're technically 300 employees. We have 300
Jeez.
employees total, or a little bit over 300 for our agency, and still hiring.
Holy hell. Okay, so I mean, you obviously cover a very big area, right? So,
Yes.
in comparison, the last agents where I finished off my career in the county that I grew up in Michigan, we had fully staffed. There was 20 of us, and there was 3 of us on at a time. One person on main phones, one person on backup phones and radios. They also did NCIC stuff, and then the one person on main law enforcement radios. And then on the weekend, there was 4 of us. There was one person who would work a 1P to 1A shift. So, damn, I can't imagine, like, kinda, like, sitting up over and looking over my console to see everybody else working, but also hearing every single thing that's going on. Now, this call that you mentioned, was this just shortly after you were just on your own?
Yes. I was on my own already for that. So I was like, oh my God. You get so many things. Like I did Ashley's podcast and I mentioned, where mom murdered her 2 kids. I wasn't aware at the time when I first got the call. It
Mhm.
was a transfer to us in our agency, and the operator's like, I told the other operator, there was 2 kids that are not responsive inside the home, and I was like, what? She didn't tell me nothing. Nice. But I also have a call that a lady called me and she said, this guy, I saw my neighbor's daughter get kidnapped, or this guy forced her into the car and he drove away. I tried to stop him and he pushed me down to the ground. So this lady's on the phone following the car, and I'm with her on the phone. Then the car stops again around a different area. I hear her in the background struggling with a guy. Let her go. And he pushes her again down, pushes the girl back in the car, speeds away. She starts chasing him again. I mean, normally we tell people, ma'am, don't follow. What do you mean? It's my neighbor's kid. I don't know what he's going to do to her. And she wanted to stay. So I had to so we went through, I would say, like 4 different cities before finally they did a felony stop in the car. Thankfully, they stopped the car, they got the guy in custody, and it was fine. But normally, when you're in a car, in those calls, the lady just kept saying, where are they? Where are they? What is your name? I'm like, Josie. I'm like, normally I don't like giving my name, but the lady was so stressed out, and I get it.
Yeah.
Somebody she saw that she may know is getting kidnapped. I'm like, it's Josie. Well, where are they, Josie? And they're yelling at you at the phone. I'm like, they're gonna get there, ma'am. Just keep updating me on the location. I'm getting them there, okay? But you're changing. I would tell her, you have to explain to the public because they don't understand. You're changing from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. They don't
Right.
understand not everything's handled just by a county. You can have different city municipalities that handle depending where you are. Like, okay, you have an intersection, and in that intersection, south of it could be one agency, north of it, another agency. Because we try to explain to them. They don't understand that. That to them is like a cop, doesn't matter where, should just help somebody. Doesn't matter if it's not your city.
It's I'm glad it's good to hear that you as well as others explain this stuff, especially in those, those fast moments. Um, I found when I was in dispatch that just being real, with the callers. Even though, in a heightened state or whatever, it would sometimes bring them down a little bit to let them know, even sometimes being a little bit more firm, right? So for example, someone was telling me, the same thing as you. Where are they? Get them here as fast as you can. And I would tell them, listen, the officer is not just sitting around the corner. They are coming from a few townships away. They're going as fast as they can to get to you. I'm on the phone with you. We're already relaying messages and everything. They have your information, but they're not just sitting around waiting for you. Your emergency isn't the only emergency, but they're getting there as fast as they can. And a lot of times, just saying something like that, people would go, "Oh, okay, no, I understand. I'm sorry." And I would say, "You don't have to be sorry. I understand. You're going through some shit." Well, I wouldn't say you're going through some shit, but you know what I mean.
We
I
would
would
say
say,
politically correct. You're going through
right.
something right now. We get it.
Right, yeah, yeah, exactly, and they would be fine with that, and sometimes just that, just hearing that piece, they're going as fast as they can to get to you, would sometimes calm them down a little bit, but then, of course, a few seconds later or whatever, a couple of minutes, they're like, "Where are they?" Like, "They're almost there." You just keep me updated with what it is that's going on, but, there's those moments like that when you're waiting for help to get there, that you have to continue that conversation going, unless sometimes you ask them, if we can just sit here if you want, or we can continue talking, or whichever. Sometimes people would say, no, I just need to sit here for a moment and not say anything. And then of course, a lot of times too, I would think, okay, good. Because then, you have to continue thinking of more things to talk to them about to keep them as calm as possible.
Yeah, and it creates anxiety on your end too, trying to come
Mhm.
up with things to tell the caller while they're on the way. Because most of the time it's they're on the way. You sound like a recording half the time they're on the way because that's what they
Right.
want you to use, repetitive persistence. And I'm like, I had a call with a trainee where he did a CPR. It was 20 minutes into the call. And it was they still weren't there. And he's there, and I think that was his first CPR call, and he was like, 1, 2, 3. I'm counting with you. 1, 2, 3. So you're saying that over and over, counting with the caller. And for them, it's like you're taking over an hour to get there. It wasn't 20 minutes. It took you an hour to get here because obviously they're in action and they're doing CPR. And if you've taken CPR training classes, we do it with the dummies. But even with that, you're like,
Right.
like this is work.
Right, yeah, exactly. You've got, whoever it is that's coming in, and you're there with everyone, and, for me, like, some of my coworkers and stuff, we'd be like, "Man, it feels stupid." But, you know, we gotta do
Oh,
it. We
once
have
you
to
start
have that certification.
Yeah, well, when you start pumping that chest, though, you're really like, "This is a workout. This is no joke." And you're like, "What?" And you have to count out loud. So I'm thinking, if this is the caller, I understand why they're like, "Fuck this! I'm not fucking counting. I'm just gonna be pumping this chest because
Yeah.
you run out of breath."
Exactly, and I think, along with not just that part, I know that there's a lot more to it, but when I was getting out of dispatch towards the end of my career, they had changed that protocol where now there wasn't, so much the rescue breaths, it was just compressions.
Yeah, it's
So
so
it
that
was
way.
yeah, yeah, so it
So it's
ended up
compressions, airway, breathing.
mhm.
Like it's cab now versus ABC.
Yeah, so they were switching it over, and that was something as well, because it was better at least for some of the callers that I had, because they would immediately say, "I don't wanna put my mouth on," like, "No, no, no, we just need you to do compressions." Like I said, "Just keep doing compressions until somebody gets there. I'll count with you, and we'll go through it." But yeah, you're
Yeah, and
you're
then when you're
right.
telling them we're doing this 600 times, and I'm gonna be counting out loud with you, you're like 600 times. What are
Yeah.
these people coming, ma'am? I'm like, yeah, they're coming, but we still need to do this, okay? Get them on the floor, get them on the ground. And then you also have those barriers where if they're in between a toilet, how to how to get the
Oh,
patient from that kind of wedged area, or if they're a large person and they're on the bed and they keep telling you, I can't get them off the bed, and then we got to tell them how to slip the sheet off the bed and slide them off the bed with the sheet. And mostly they're scared that they're gonna fall and they're gonna hit their head. And what if? And we're like, don't worry. We have to keep telling them, don't worry, that's not going to hurt them. Because once they understand, like, if you're knocked out, you're literally, your body's not tense.
Mhm.
Like if you were to be partially awake, your body tenses up when you feel like you're going to fall. So
Yeah.
literally, they're unconscious. So when they fall, they just go, there's no tension there. So they're not going to hurt themselves, which is usually what happens when a drunk driver, if they were to get ejected out of the car, 9 out of 10 be surviving because they're not tense. Their body's not tense. They fall like a spaghetti onto the ground in the impact.
I've told my mom that. I'm gonna have her listening to this part specifically because I've told her before. I said, "That's why, the majority of the time, those that are driving drunk, they survive because they're completely loose and they're not tightened up or anything like everybody else." And she goes, "No, no, mijo, that's not what." And okay, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
And
her
they should
listen
have
to this part.
barely scratches on them, barely
Mhm.
scratches on them compared to a person that was impacted on the other car that was not intoxicated.
Yeah,
Because
and then
normally when you have an accident, you tense up everything in your body, holding the steering wheel or whatever it is that you're doing at the time, you're already tensing up, and that's why you have more damage.
oh, it's freaking crazy. And like you're saying also, like with classes, and when you're in there and you're practicing and you're getting that certification and everything. I don't know how yours was, but for mine, they would have what was the song? Staying Alive. They would play Staying Alive on. Did they do the same thing in your
Yeah,
class?
they still play that video. Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, so then we would talk about it, and we would try to find other songs. So on the other side of that, Another One Bites the Dust by Queen is the same compression rate, or it's the same rhythm. So there's your dark humor for Dispatch Style.
Okay, I didn't know that one.
Yeah,
That's good.
and Darth Vader's music, the Imperial March. It's
Darth
this
Vader.
it's the
I'm gonna have
same.
to tell my wife that she's a Star Wars fan.
There you go. It's the same rhythm and everything for CPR.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so crazy. People who are gonna watch and listen to this are gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
It helps if you think of I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Star Wars fans that are gonna like that reference alone. They're gonna be like, it's
Oh,
gonna
it
stick to
saves
their mind
lives.
when if they ever do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Return of the Jedi, yeah. It does work. So you've been doing this for about, 13 years now and everything, and, out of all this time and kind of reflecting on this as well, how do you feel like the job has kinda changed you?
It's been I would say my job is a roller coaster of
Mhm.
emotions for me. I was in a very angry state for at least 5 to 6 years. Once we moved, because we were originally one site, I came, and then they came, hey, we're going regional. And then we absorbed a lot of other cities, other agencies, and we got moved to other sites. We got split up. So the people you normally work with are going to be different people. Not everybody's going to be the same. Everybody's broken up. So the relationships are different. So I kind of understood in that moment I'm not good with change, which is interesting because our job is always changing, right? So
Right,
you
yeah.
kind of hang on to the little things that are you're constant. So it took me a while. I was not happy. Like that change, I was a beast. I literally was. I was like not happy. I'm like, these clock pickers, they don't know what the hell they're doing, or these city people, they don't know what the hell they're doing. So I was not happy. It took me a while, and then I actually asked one of my friends that she would have bursts of anger during that site or something would upset her, and then she was like, calm, relax. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I started talking to a therapist, and I'm like, oh, who did you go to and what's going on? She would tell me what happened, what she experienced, and it was a peer. It wasn't like a supervisor that I asked, and someone I
Yeah.
trusted. So I started going to Dr. Kushner, and after I started talking to her, I was like, immediately, I was like, I don't want to be on pills. I don't want to be on pills.
Yeah.
I just want to figure out what's wrong, and I want to fix it. She was like, okay, well, we'll kind of see where you're at, where it's going, and it was interesting. You go and you're talking there, you're venting, and half the time the doctor's just, "Mhm. How does that make you feel? And how do you think that that's gonna impact what you're doing right now? Or so maybe try this." And she would give me like some anger worksheets. She was like, maybe try writing out something before you say it. That worked for like a hot minute. And then I was like, F this. Ugh.
Crumble, throw.
Right. So I was like, this is not working. I mean, I tried it, but my mind, how it would just go from instant. So then I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna need the pills because I tried your method and it's not really working. I'm still angry. I'm still angry. I still sleep a lot. I still my energy is like to the tank. I'm like, I don't know. So she was like, well, let's test your thyroid. They always try to test everything physically with you before that's like ultimatum. Because I did
Yeah.
tell her that wasn't like what I wanted at the time. So I went to my primary. I checked it out with them, and I was like, okay. She was like, no, your thyroid's fine. And I explained to her, okay, well, I've already been talking to a therapist, and she said to check that first before I got on antidepressants, which she can't prescribe because she's not a psychiatrist; she's just a psychologist.
Mhm.
So they were like, oh, okay, well, answer these questions for us, and according to that, we'll start you out with a small dosage. So I started out at 37.5. I am currently at 150 milligrams. So it's kind of like you have to see where it goes. At first, when I started, I was like, I felt like I didn't feel that burst of anger when I first started on antidepressants. I would just be like, calm. But then I feel like your body gets used to it, right? So
Yeah.
that's where I was at. And I kept having to move up. And currently, I've been on the 150 for like two years straight. But now I'm dealing with high cholesterol, high blood pressure. So kind of it has to do with working out, eating better, right? That's what they tell us. But our work schedule, I at least for me, I work 12 hours, 3 days and a half day, just 6 hours, and then I have 3 days off. So before, which is a lot better, I'm gonna say, because before we were working 12s 5 days a week, and we were supposed to be on 8s,
Oh
but
shit.
we were getting mandated every day. That's how short we were. So it was kind of not working for us. You only had 2 days off. So that trickled in the burnout and everything else. Everybody was miserable at work because they were getting mandated every day. So it was kind of like, yeah, I hate this place. Nobody has to work this much. Why do we have? And you
So,
can't get a time off. 13
oh,
years that I've been there, and anytime I put a time off, I can get it off. So I have to swap to get a time off with another coworker.
jeez.
You know how much PTO time I have that I can't use other than my vacation bids?
And
That's an issue.
do you lose it? Do you lose it if you don't use a certain amount? Do you end up losing that
No,
going into the following year?
it rolls over as
Oh, it
long as
does?
yes, it rolls over as long as you stick to I think it's 325 hours. If you're over the hours, then yes, you will lose it. So admin technically you have to go to admin like, hey, I tried to put on this time off. You guys keep denying me, but hey, I have this amount of overage and I'm gonna lose it. So they have to kind of accommodate you. And if they choose not to, that's why you have the union and you have to go to the union and be like, hey, I tried. They told me no, this was going on. Then the union has to fight for your time, basically, because they're not gonna pay you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, they can pay me my time. And they're like, yeah, they're not gonna pay you the time. Sorry. So they had to like give me 2 weeks off, like in November, to make. And I was like, all right, well, that's what I'm gonna take.
Jeez. So it sounds like there's so many variables, a combination of things that were really adding to, the emotions and everything else that you were going through on top of probably, low morale in the center to begin with, because everyone is going through this, right? And I mean, what's the answer? What is it that admin ends up doing? Listening to you talk takes me back years ago to 2007 when I had just come off of training, and I got I got overtime. I got forced in like 2 or 3 times that first weekend that I was off of training and on my own. And we were kind of dealing with the same thing, just very low morale. County wasn't allowing actually we were fighting for the raise, some sort of raise with our union, but when we were so short staffed that we are getting forced overtime. If you volunteered for the overtime, you would go to the bottom of the force enlist. But I was
You still have to
volunteering.
pay the person.
Yeah.
Unless if you're 25-year, you get on the you can't touch. Even the 20, we were so short, even the 25-year starting to get touched. And they were like, oh no. They were like, I'm not doing it. I don't care if you write me up. I've done 25 years of this. You can't tell me I need to do overtime. So it was just,
Oh,
so we were all at each other's throat
yeah.
because none of us were happy. So everybody was fighting. There was like, the deal had to put fires out every day. But then they were always like, well, you are the problem. And I'm like, I'm not the problem. People talking to me is the problem. I don't have a problem unless they talk to me crazy. I'm just saying.
Man. Holy shit. Okay, so then, you have all of these other things that start building up too, the high blood pressure and all this other things. Like I remember going to the doctor and my doctor saying, Ricardo, you've got, hypertension going. Actually, at that time it was pre-hypertension.
Mhm.
And he goes, we're going to have to try to bring that down. He goes, you need to try to be less stressed, uh, throughout the day and maybe also while you're at work. And I said, have I ever told you what I do for a living? Do you know what I do for a living? And he goes, actually, no, I don't know. And I said, I'm a 911 dispatcher. And he goes, yeah, I guess you can't be less stressed, can you? I was like, thank you for that. No, I can't. But I mean, there was a lot that could be done, right? And I was having some neck issues as well. And he was kind of a chiropractor too. I didn't know he was going to do this shit. I was sitting at the edge of the table, right, as he was checking me out, and he starts walking closer to me slowly, and I'm like kind of moving back a little bit, like, what the hell is he doing? And he goes, so you said your neck's kind of been hurting and stuff, and and I said, yeah, and he's just talking to me, and I'm thinking, what the hell? And like a ninja, crack, crack, both sides. And I'm just sitting there looking at him, and he goes, how do you feel? And I said, actually feel really good. I feel like you just released so much tension. Then he goes, good, good, I'm glad. And I said, wait a minute though, you didn't tell me you were going to do that. And he goes, would you have let me do it if I would have said that to you? And I was like,
Exactly. Or
okay,
you would have gone tense and wouldn't have been as flexible as the
right.
unexpected.
Right, exactly. There would have been some bullshit that happened or whatever, but he did it so fast. Like I can't even explain it. He just crack, crack. I mean, that's slow motion, but he just did it in a snap, literally a snap. And I'm sitting there just, okay, I'm gonna go check out the chiropractor. Oh, but
Yes,
this is
I've done
other.
that too.
Oh, has that helped at all?
Yeah, because for sitting for long periods of time, I have lower back pain usually.
Mhm.
So that's what I was going for the chiropractor for.
Now, do you use a headset?
Yes.
Okay.
Both ears versus this one, just one.
So when I was in dispatch, our headsets for whatever reason, like so the mechanism that you connect it to, sometimes it wouldn't work. And when you would try to plug it in, it would automatically like turn the microphone on. It would be hot. And you'd have to take it out right away so that it wasn't having an open mic moment. So a lot of the times when I would be taking calls, I would have the phone like this. So when I finally went to the chiropractor, and this is probably, I don't know, 3 weeks after I was done with dispatch, he had to take an X-ray. Everything started catching up to me as well. When you're in dispatch, you're on the go all the time, on the go. Even on your days off, you're kind of on the go, right? In a way. And I didn't settle down enough for my body to finally catch up to me until I was done with dispatch. So I'm in the chiropractor and my body is like hurting like hell. I get these x-rays done and the doctor starts laughing and he goes, Mr. Martinez, I need you to come back here. And I said, okay, did you find something? And he goes, yeah, I did actually. So I'm obviously freaking out already, and I go to look, but then I'm thinking, I'm at the chiropractor. What is he gonna find? And on my X-ray, you see me like this in the damn picture. And he goes, "How many years were you answering the phone and you had yourself like this? Because you're kind of stuck that way right now. We have a lot of work to do." And I said, "I don't know that I want to answer that question because I should have been using the headset. The headset wasn't working all the time. So yeah, I would always have the phone there." So it took a while for me to get finally adjusted, but that's how it looked. I was I was pretty fucked up.
And I believe it. And another thing that people don't realize also that I've started noticing is once the person retires, a lot of them we get a passing notification not too long after.
Oh
So these
wow.
people gave out like 30, 35 years, and then right after it's, well, such and such passed. And I'm like, they didn't even get to enjoy the retirement. So you bled your life for this place, and then short notice you pass when it's your retirement is supposed to be your golden years.
Right.
But they don't realize we as also first responders, we may not have like police officers that they see this stuff or fire paramedics, but we also go with that adrenaline rush.
Right.
We're always spiked. You can have a call that brings up your adrenaline, then brings it back down, brings it back up. So after you're done working, you're not as proactive anymore. So you just go. So I think it's hard also for people that are retiring in the dispatch world to kind of transition into something more healthy for them.
That's very true because there's a lot of folks that I know who have um they left dispatch and they go off to do something else and then they come right back and they continue doing it, whether it's, full time or sometimes part time or whichever, or they just want to be a part of it. And it somehow, whether it's, working records or HR or whichever, they end up coming back to it because it definitely gets into your blood. But you're right because thinking about it, there's a few people that I know of who have retired and then have passed as well, and that does suck because then you start to think about yourself too, and you're like, what do I do? Like where when you hit that crossroad, where do you want to go? So in thinking about all of this, for yourself, like what are your thoughts? Like how do we kind of curb this? Is there a way for maybe even, afterwards or not just afterwards. Let's say during the time that you're there, how else can we do this? How can centers look at this more or even get a better idea? Or maybe it's just listening in general to your people on what it is that they're going through versus thinking of them as someone who is filling a seat.
You have to get people to care. And that's the hard part. I've had that challenge because it's mainly they say they want to do the right thing, they say they care about the person, but actions say different in
Right.
your agencies. And our agency just started peer support. It wasn't we didn't have peer support before. But to be honest, I feel like peer support is non-existent.
Mhm.
Like I started, thankfully through 911 Wonder Woman, I met Shannon Polito. I told
Yes.
her I'm gonna say it in Spanish, Polito.
Yeah.
She's awesome. She has a lot of resources. So I saw that she was putting out a lot of resources, and I was like, man, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we need to do more stuff like now. We can't just think about when I'm not doing this job anymore. I'm gonna worry about me. It has to be now, today.
Right.
Because if you leave that, that's where all that cumulative stuff comes in. And then and your body's been through a lot because of your constant stress situation. And you haven't done anything about it till you're done. And then at that point, everything caught up to you. And then you may get cancer or you might start having other diseases and stuff in your body that because that's how your body is fighting through all of that stress and you don't realize it. And that's what I'm kind of doing now is like, oh, my cholesterol is high. And my wife sees what I eat. She was like, we don't even eat that bad. I mean, we eat out here and there and stuff, but you don't eat as bad as you could.
Mhm.
But it's part of the job. And I have to do other things physically. But for example, in our center, we don't have a gym. In our old building, we had access to the gym on the second floor, so we could get off a shift, we could just go there versus having to drive to a gym. Because you're coming off a 12-hour shift. Am I gonna want to drive to the gym? No.
You want to go home.
I want to go home and I want to go to sleep.
Right. Yeah,
Because 9 out
exactly.
of 10, even when I am home, I come here at 7 o'clock at night, I eat dinner with my wife, and I go to sleep. She was like, "You
You
look
got to go right back.
exhausted."
Yeah.
Exactly. To wake up and do the same thing the next day. So I'm sorry, no, that I don't feel like freaking walking and sweating when I get home and then go to sleep. So it's kind of like that's what you kind of have to like train your mind to do those things. So that's why like I started one of my coworkers was walking on her 30-minute break. It's hot as hell out here. Not gonna lie, it's like 96, 98, 100 degrees.
Oh my
So I
God.
try to get like the first break, like 7 a.m. when it's not so hot out, and walk my 30-minute breaks. I've slacked on that, I will say, but I started doing that. So it kind of helps. So I kind of did my 30-minute walk because that's what my cardiologist anyway says. Like, don't do like any heavy lifting. I'm not telling you to go run a marathon, but at least walk 30 minutes a day, and you're gonna see that's gonna make a difference. At least if you do that. And I'm like, okay, sure, buddy. When I find the time or energy to do that, I will do that. So we kind of have to implement stuff. And I feel like if your management also starts figuring out like wellness ways to help your dispatchers, not just say, hey guys, you get discounts to go to the gym, but make things accessible to us that we can use in our centers. That would make it a lot easier versus just telling us what we already know we have to do, but we don't have the time or get motivated to do it. Like if you have a motivational partner at work that also has to work on things, we're all not going to be great and motivated every day, but at least try.
Yeah. No, there's got to be a buy-in everywhere, whether it be at the top or to have that influence from the front line to influence those at the top to say, this is all the shit that we're going through. We need this. Do you want for us to continue to be short staffed? Do you want us to continue to be having these issues and everything? You need something has to change. It can no longer be this is the way it has always been done. That is bullshit. Like that has to change. But obviously there's a lot of places that are still like that. It's just they're gonna keep having issues until some of those things change. And also a lot of us kind of listening to our bodies, right? A lot of times we don't. And I say that personally because I was one of those people and I still do it every so often, but I always say to people, if you don't listen to your body, eventually your body is going to make you listen, and then you have to deal with whatever it is that's going on by that time. I mean, there were a few times when I was in dispatch, I was in the emergency room for heart palpitations, and it's because I wasn't taking care of myself. It was because I was oh god, this is gonna be embarrassing. But I I would go to, a fast food place, and I would buy enough food to last me those 12 hours that I was in dispatch. And I remember one time ordering food and rolling up and the person looking at me, and I said, "It's not all in one sitting. It's for 12 hours, damn it." Like, but
For us, it's
it
the
was
constant ordering out.
yes, yeah, the ordering out, but, the amount of caffeine that I was taking in as well, and not as much water, I ended up in the hospital a couple times, and the last year and a half is when I changed basically everything. Got into meditation, got into breathing techniques. I actually started doing yoga. Like all of that shit actually helped me in dispatch. It helped with everything from, keeping myself calm to, you know, d- helping the callers even more so, but more so for me with the breathing techniques and such. But that was one of the things. If I could go back in time, that's what I would tell myself is to get into this stuff more and really listen to my body and things like that because I was struggling.
We do a lot, and we don't realize it, like I said, till We have to go to the doctor constantly, or we're always calling out sick. But then you get on sick leave analysis because you're constantly calling out sick. I'm like, yes, I'm sick because of this place.
Right. Ah, damn. I think in some places, it is getting better. There is change. There's the more resources out there for all of us, but it's people just they got to listen. Like some of these core elements, these skills, listening to your people to understand what it is that they're going through. And I also think, and I want to know what you think about this as well, because I don't know how your structure is there where you work, but our deputy director would go in and sit with us and see what it was that we were going through. And sometimes even the director would have a chance to go in there as well. And I feel like that bridges the gap between what's going on in the center and on the other side of the hallway for, admin to kind of get that feel for it. Do you feel like maybe if there was more of that in some of the centers that maybe we could bridge that gap and really come together and understand?
Oh, how do I say
You're
the
like
right things here?
you're like, "You don't
So,
know how our stuff works."
well, it's we're still led by sworn personnel,
Mhm.
right? So it's a sworn personnel. We have either a captain major over us or both, and then goes our director, assistant director. But they're in a completely different site than all three sites that we work. So all three sites have a site manager and an assistant manager. So kind of I feel like the director, assistant director are relying on those said site managers to relay the information to them from the
Mm.
masses. Which if I can tell you right now, the last thing is that we have is great communication in communications. We don't get a lot of information back. We don't get a lot of feedback back. And if we give feedback, I feel like it's seen as a negative versus, okay, they're
Mhm.
trying to tell us something. So
Almost like a complaint or something
it
versus
sounds like a complaint,
advice
and
or
right. They're just like, okay, well, what's your solution about it? And even if we try to give you a solution, you're like, yeah, that's great, but no, we're not going to do that.
Mm, damn it.
So, like, mostly people are like, oh, it's but all you can do is keep trying. But me, it's like, okay, how many times am I going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then all of a sudden I just keep getting a wall? Am I going to
Yeah.
stop? So that's kind of where Latinas ended up. I'm like, okay, I'm trying. I could at least try for other people. Hey, this is information I've learned, or this is what I have, and hey, if you want to get it, I can help you out somewhere else. Versus, keep trying somewhere that I keep getting told no.
Ah, damn. Yeah, that's the hard part as well, is when you have people in different places or come from different places and you're relaying information, and some of the information right not getting relayed, but some of the ones that or some of the stuff that is getting relayed, the message isn't clear because it's basically like the game, that a lot of people as kids played, telephone. You start with one message and you pass it to the next person. And by the time you get to the end of the line, it's a completely different message than what it was in the beginning. And that's what it kind of sounds like is going on in some places. Is shit's just not getting relayed. And if it is, the message is not clear.
Yeah, so that's why when you say, "Oh, we have an open door policy," no, you don't, because you want me to follow a chain of command. So then I have to expect or hope that the person I relayed the information to is relaying it back to you, and there's no actual feedback. You don't get a response other than yeah, no, or you hear nothing. Literally, you get nothing back.
Ugh. Yeah, and no answer is an answer as well. And that's the one that stings the most, right? God dang it. So, transitioning then, as you kind of mentioned here already, a little bit, how did you start and what was the drive and everything behind Latinas of 911?
Well, It came from my mentor. You might know her. Yes, you do know her. Dominic Mathis.
Yes.
Hello, 911. Yeah, I love her. I miss her. She was our training coordinator. Um, and she started her little baby. So I was like, man, Dominique has this. Sarah Weston did this. And I'm like, I'm going to try it. I don't see any Latinas of 911. I'm going to try that. I told my wife, and my wife's like, that's a good idea, honey. You should definitely do it. And she just got on and got me the websites. And I was like, honey, I didn't know I was going to do it. That like, she was like, come on, do it. She already started me. And I was like, okay.
Like,
Well,
you got to do it now.
exactly. Got to follow through now because you get an
Yeah.
idea. I get them all the time. That's so random. And then she's like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. You should do it. And she's just like, okay, here you go. So I'm like, okay, get some prettiness. So I started by,
Gotta dive in.
and it's, I started with, okay, how do I do a logo? How do I, like, I had to look up stuff and I have the website. I kind of have a little thing going up now. It's, I still have to work on it with time. And the podcast stuff that I told Ashley is great. I asked her about it. How did you start it? You know, how is it for you? And like I told her, she may not think that she's making an impact, but I told her you are because when I saw your information on the on 911 Wonder Woman, I started listening to you, and I was like, oh man, like other dispatchers from around or stuff that they would say, how to help a caller that I never heard. Like one of them said, how do you get to calm down an irate caller? And she was like, I say, hey, mom. And you would, out of nowhere, the person just stops, like, what? What did you call me?
Right.
And that brings them down, and then you can get back into, like, oh, man, that's cool. I never tried that. I might try that next time. So it's good to hear other perspectives from everywhere. And I even had trainees, I told her that we're starting, like, oh, yeah, listen to the Raspy Dispatcher or your podcast. I
Mhm.
am 911. And what is it? The Trenches.
Yes. Yep. Within the trenches.
So they've listened to that. And I didn't know you guys existed till Dom started telling us in our meetings, in our training meetings. She was like, hey guys, there's so many resources out there. You guys should try it. You know, there's Facebook groups, there's 911 Wonder Woman. She mentioned yours. And then we started, and I started listening. I'm like, man, this would have been great in 2010 if I would have known of this. Like, I didn't know because it's true. Like our agency does a lot of since it's within sworn personnel, most of the stuff that we learn training is kind of more tailored to law enforcement and fire.
Yeah.
It's not tailored to our line of work. So when I see these trainings now outside, when I did Dare to Be Great, I did your conference. I've
Hmm.
watched it. I've watched the Thin Gold Line conference, and I watched a few others. I was like, oh, what these people are teaching, it has to do, and they actually did our job. I was like, this is great. Why didn't we have this in 2010? Like, I didn't even know this existed. This is awesome. So putting the word out, and I'm going to tell you, in the South Florida area, Palm Beach, Miami, and Broward, they don't have this kind of training at all. I'm going to say it right now. They don't because I've gone to Orlando when Sarah's on her 911 Wonder thing, and it's
Yeah.
mainly Central Florida that's out there. I've been the only one from down south. I'm like, I'm the only one here.
Right. Like, hi.
But they're so nice and they're welcoming, and it's great to see other women that are actually motivated also to help their centers or want to change the culture. So I feel like the more people I tell, like, hey, guys, you know, there's stuff outside
Yeah.
you can look into. You know, but that's the thing, a lot of people don't want to do it. Am I going to get paid for it? Oh, I'm not getting paid, I'm not getting overtime, I don't want to do it. Like I'm actually doing it because I want to learn more than what I'm getting taught,
Yeah.
and it's opened a lot of different doors for me in learning those and meeting great people and training. And that's how I'm bringing back these ideas back to my center. I'm like, hey, I learned this, check this out, this is great. I did a rapid training, and I'm like, hey, did you know in rapid we could do this? And then our assistant manager that was doing our in-service training, he's like, yeah, we haven't figured that out. We're gonna do that yet. I'm like, but why can we know about these things? Like, why do you? That's great, you know that information, but why doesn't actual people that do the job know this information?
Very
So
true.
That's the problem I feel like within our agency is that hoarding of information. Like everybody feels like if I give out too much information, then somebody else wants to be a superstar. Well, but what's going to happen if you're not here, buddy? All of that knowledge that you have and you don't give to somebody else, what is that going to do if you're not here one day?
Yeah, gone. Exactly.
So what is the
Why
director,
gatekeep?
assistant director? Exactly. What is the assistant director, director? Who are they going to rely to if nobody else knows what you know? And that is the problem, I feel. Until there is more information shared, until more people start actually training better and doing stuff that is related to our job, because there's also NG911. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about that. I didn't start learning until I started doing training outside of work.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh man, this is coming. This is real. And a lot of people don't even know what that is. I can tell you right now in our center, people are like, video? I'm not doing video calls. I don't know what they're talking about, but it's something that we're going to eventually do. It's technology. Everything's changed. We didn't have internet computers before, and now we have them. Now we can access Google. Now we can access Rapid through that. Before, we didn't have that.
Man, that's it's crazy to think that that wasn't there, especially when you think about it now and how everything has completely changed. I didn't have Rapid when I was in dispatch or anything. I left in 2013, so there was a lot of times where when I would be taking phone calls, if we couldn't find the location off of a ping, we couldn't find the person. We would
Yeah.
exhaust all resources, but then I'm the one who's left because I took that call. I'm the one who's left feeling like shit. Like, what if I would have done this or what if I would have done this? Blaming myself for it. I think having technology the way we have it now also helps with our mental health and wellness in a way, because having that new technology, it would be easier for me to find somebody and I wouldn't be blaming myself as much. But
Did
it's
I
different.
send them to the right place? Or did I not? Did I mess up on the street name or did I
Mhm.
not? And that's what I tell also the new hires. I'm like, you have a lot more resources than when I started. When I started, it was literally the big white phone book,
Oh,
and it was a cell phone trace.
a big old map.
And then the deals would have to do the pings if the cell phone trace subscriber information was inaccurate or not right. So it was a lot of steps to get to somebody. Imagine the time it takes, and then now we just go through either our phase two coordinates from the VoIP lines versus or Rapid, look it up through Rapid and go through that. I'm like, we
Jeez.
didn't have that.
It's definitely a lot better now.
A lot faster. You put in calls a lot faster than you did before. We just do a 911 drop off, and that's another thing. We would get 911 drop offs, and if we heard something or we didn't hear something, we wouldn't put the call in. We only put the call in if we heard something suspicious,
Yeah.
or you think it was something suspicious you heard in the background. And now they make us put everything in. So these cops are going all over the place for suspicious incidents, 911 drop offs, because of the rapid locations and the phase two locations. And sometimes it is actual calls and sometimes it's not. They don't find anything, but they're out there and they're doing stuff regardless.
Yeah. There's a lot that comes with it. And sometimes too, it'll end up being someone who's just messing around on the phone, or you hear things that maybe you don't want to hear. People having
Or
intimate moments.
or people giving it to their kids, 9 out of 10. Oh my God. If I had to do a public service announcement, it would be that please do not give your disconnected cell phones to your children. They could still dial 911.
Exactly. Yes. Oh man. Yeah, we used to tell people you need to take the battery out. Well, now you can't because everything's
No,
all
they're like,
slotted
oh, but
in.
it doesn't have the lights for them to play with. I'm like, then get them a toy, ma'am. A cell phone is not a toy. Thank
Right.
you.
Or just tell them to chill. Do whatever you got to do. Yeah, don't have them play with the phone. Um, so looking looking into the future here for Latinas of 911, where do you see it going? Like, what do you envision?
I want to bring it to a nonprofit
Mhm.
organization as well. Um, I have talked to Sarah about it. She's like, it is a lot of work, and she's like, but she's proud of obviously where it's gone right now with for
Mhm.
her with 911 Wonder Woman. But I also see a lot of people also helping in regards to that. So it's kind of like a baby right now. But I definitely want to help. And with the merchandise, it's kind of what I want to do is start putting in towards eventually helping someone if they want to do the ENP or progress in other stuff outside of work, either through NINA or APCO certifications, because they are expensive. I even looked at for myself, like training. I'm like, oh my god, $400. That's a lot of money. I got a mortgage, a light bill to pay, and they're like, oh, but there's scholarships out there, and I'm like, scholarships? What? I didn't know about this.
Yeah,
Who has scholarships?
the scholarships are always really good because yeah, that stuff is expensive.
It is starts adding up, and then conferences too. It's like 300, 400, 500. I'm like,
That doesn't even count the travel.
exactly, exactly. Like if you have to book a flight or a hotel, and the hotels are insane
Right.
recently. I'm like, what is wrong with these people?
That's freaking nuts. But that's awesome though. That is very cool that it'll be another resource that people will be able to take advantage of these things. I feel like you and I and others that are doing these things, we want to leave 911 in a better place than where we found it to also be able to give opportunity to others who might not have those opportunities or to those who might not know about all of these things that are going on, just kind of how you said, because the same with me towards the end of my dispatching career, I didn't know that Nina had a mothership. I didn't know that there was a national Nina. I just thought that every state had their own chapter of Nina or APCO. That was it. You know, our folks there in my center, they really didn't tell us a lot about it. We didn't have memberships or anything. I think maybe a couple people did, but nobody really knew about what was going on with those organizations. And then we started to do more and more of it, and it actually started helping. So that's awesome that you'll be another resource for people out there and to be able to push it and everything else. So with the merch, where can people find it?
Well, right now, I just tell them to DM me if they're interested, and I have Instagram, Latinas of 91. I have my website. I have an email set up with all the information there, my phone number, and I have a Facebook group also for Latinas of 91. If anybody wants to join there, I'm on LinkedIn also. You can find me by Josephine Rios right there. Thank you.
Awesome. Excellent. I will make sure for everybody who's watching and listening to put this in the blog post along with the episode that ends up going out so that they'll have links for every single one of these. So, as we go into the wrap up of this episode, and it's been awesome to have you on here and learn more about
Thank
your
you.
story and what you're
And
doing, if you could go back in time with the knowledge that you have now to talk to yourself in the beginning, what advice would you give yourself?
I would have looked for you guys a lot sooner. I probably would have been in a different path, that's for sure. Because once you're in this for the amount of time that I am, it's not easy to just go from one agency to the other. You kind of like start at the bottom,
Right.
and so does salary, right? So I can't leave 90 something to go back to 50 something. So it's kind of like if I would have had the knowledge I've had, then I probably would not be where I am today. But then I feel like there's always something for a reason. That's why I am now. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be grateful for the experiences that I've had, and I'm always grateful for my agency because they were the ones who gave me the shot in the beginning. And I love my job. I love what I do. I don't like the politics possibly behind it, but I love what I do.
Awesome. Perfect. And I agree with you in the sense that everything that you've gone through has made you who you are today and has pushed you to create Latinas of 911. Because if you think about it, if you went back and you had, different resources or knew about different things, what if that one change would have caused this not to happen? Or, certain things or whichever, you wouldn't have a certain experience. And what with what you've gone through, what we've talked about today, I feel like it'll help you for any other new people that are coming in to be able to tell them, one, you have it easier. There's things that you have that you don't know, but you have that knowledge where you can tell them, this is what it was like before, and I can help you with this. And I think in that sense, having that experience, that makes it that much better, because you're knowledgeable, you're experienced, and you know how to go through it because you've gone through it.
Yes. Thank you.
So that's awesome. I'm excited for everything that you're going to end up doing, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. Josephine here is also going to be a speaker for Dare to Be Great 5, and I am so excited to have you on as a speaker. It is going to be excellent.
It's my first time, so I'm gonna be like, oh my god.
You're going to be like the one eye through. No, you're gonna do great. It's gonna be awesome. And again, I'm excited to have you a part of that. I'm happy to have you on here and just to see what you continue to do with everything that you're doing, and especially with Latinas of 911. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricardo. Appreciate it.
I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on all the social media shit that's out there. Easy enough on the bottom left hand of the screen. And for those who are just listening right now, it is links.co/WTT podcast. And once again, that is links, but that's with 2 I's, .co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything on there. Email, social media, where to follow, the latest episode, where you can buy Imagine Listening the book, where you can become a patron of the podcast or subscriber on Facebook for more bonus content and all of that. And also, if you follow me on TikTok, I am developing a couple different series that's going to be on there that you can check out. So make sure to look out for that. And let's see, this can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and within the trenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.